Everything is changing, growing, and evolving, even you. From the nurse's student to the baby nurse, off the bedside nurse and into entrepreneurship, you have evolved. So now we're here at the Evolved Nurse Podcast. I'm your host, Lakeisha, and let's get right into the episode. So, today we have a nurse who has navigated every area of nursing there is from CNA, and on her journey to NP school. She has the broad range of understanding various roles, a motivation to nurses who need a push to go further, and to those in auxiliary staff who feels like they want more. She could have given up on many occasions, but she was delayed and not denied. Her strength is undeniable. Let's welcome Nurse Sherri, the Every Step Nurse, to the Evolved Nurse Podcast.
Oh my goodness, how are you, Lakeisha? Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
No problem. Thank you for coming because you didn't have to come. You didn't have to respond to me, but you did. And
Truly,
I
I'm so
appreciate it.
honored. I really am honored. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, the first question that I always like to ask my guests is, did you always want to be a nurse?
Um, no, I did not always want to be a nurse. I was very young. I really, after high school, I really didn't know which direction I was going. And I signed up for the CNA program in high school. It was my last semester of CNA, and my last semester of high school, and it kind of guided me into nursing. So that kind of opened the door. My mother was a CNA as well, so she was kind of pushing me towards that. But when I first was in high school, no one really knows what they want to do. At least I didn't at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So becoming a CNA kind of opened that door for me, but at the time I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So when I did the CNA program, it just kind of made sense for me to go directly into becoming a nurse because right after high school, I did become pregnant. I was a young mom. So I had my son at 19 years old, and I worked as a CNA for 5 years. And then I just started, to slowly climb up the ladder, becoming an LPN and then a registered nurse. And now I'm in NP school. But we can break that all down as we go along.
Yes. So I remember you posed a question. You said, would you like to be down two nurses or three CNAs? It was something like that.
Yes, yes. So I posted that question because recently I was in the situation. I was working on a surgical oncology floor, and we were down two CNAs. And I can tell you one thing, it's been a minute since I was a CNA, and the whole floor was struggling. And it just made me realize, which have always had respect for CNAs, because again, I was a CNA for many years, and so was my
Hmm.
mother. My mother supported us, me and my siblings on a CNA salary, how much respect that they deserve. And not only that, I don't think this industry could survive without certified nursing assistants. So working short, realizing that I couldn't do it all. It was a little bit overwhelming for the
Hmm.
population of patients that we were caring for. You have to think about it. It's surgical oncology. So you're doing pretty much everything for them. On top of that, you're doing assessments, you're changing, drains, emptying drains, measuring drains, doing wounds. And on top of that, you're doing, the additional stuff, which is nursing. I don't want to separate, how some people be like, well, it is nursing care. Of course it is. But I
Hmm.
can't lie. The CNAs hold me down. The CNAs hold down the unit. And so they deserve all the respect. And it just kind of reminded me from where I started from to where I am right now and how much respect that they deserve.
Yes. I wasn't a CNA, but I was a resident assistant. So I did CNA work, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't certified. So I think it's a greater lens that we look at it with because
Yes.
we understand how it feels to have 9, 10 patients. And
Yes.
then on top of that, we know what it feels like to have a nurse who won't help. We
Mm-hmm.
know what it looks like to be on the other side of things. So I'm glad that you asked that question because most people, they come into nursing and they know what it's like to be a nurse, but once they're thrown into not having a CNA, they struggle.
Yeah. And exactly. So when you're a nurse, you're doing all aspects of nursing. Trust
Mhm.
me, I'm still toileting patients, even though I still am full staff with CNAs. I just want to make that clear. I'm
Mhm.
still, grabbing water, getting the essential ADL care. I'm assisting my CNAs, especially if the patient is assistive to care. Oh, I'm in the room. I'm turning and positioning the patients. I'm giving bedside care with them as well. But when you are down, the whole floor feels it. And so it just kind of takes a toll on not just the nursing staff, but the patients as well. They feel it as well. So it was important for me to kind of have this discussion on would you rather have, because to be quite honest, I would rather pick up an extra patient than to be down CNAs who really hold down the floor.
Mhm. Because we can split these patients and
Oh,
split the
yes.
work,
Oh, yes.
but because I was in nursing management for a little while, and I
Mhm.
recognize that some nurses, they don't wanna answer call lights, they don't wanna go into rooms, like, they would rather that be CNA work, and I'm like, "Well, if the CNA doesn't do it, that falls on your license."
Exactly, exactly. And so I recently posted something on TikTok stating that, do you think that all nurses should be CNAs first? Now, I do not agree with that statement, but I can't deny the fact that me being a CNA first has made me the nurse that I am today. You know what I mean? And it makes you have a different, level of respect of the care that they do give and what they do for the healthcare industry.
Yes, because I think it makes us have more compassion and empathy. And not saying that those who don't have that background don't, but
Mm-hmm.
because we do have the greater understanding, and I have a portion of my podcast called Bridging the Gap, where I
Yes.
talk about how, we have to communicate because healthcare is a collaborative function. So you have
Yes.
to interact in that manner so that your patient can get the best care.
Exactly, exactly. So, I was, a certified nursing assistant for 5 years and I was pregnant during that time. So I obviously, was going through it, being pregnant, lifting up patients to where I can or cannot. And
Mhm.
it was a decision that, I was like, you know what, it's time for me to go back to school to become an LPN. So I did a program called JM Right Tech in Stamford, Connecticut, and it was an 18-month LPN program. And let me tell you something. And the LPN program is no joke, okay? You go
Mhm.
to school Monday through Friday. So I literally had to work doubles on a weekend. So after school, I would go home, do homework next to my son, who at the time was in kindergarten. So here I am trying to teach him his basic, ABCs and, one, two, threes, but I'm also learning the anatomy and physiology on a human body as an
Mhm.
LPN student. So that time frame, it was probably the hardest time of my life was LPN school and having to work doubles on the weekends and really not having any life. But I realized that this sacrifice will pay off. Just like anytime you move forward in wherever you want to do, it does pay off.
Okay. And I commend you for being a mom, going through all of that and figuring it out and balancing it, because I'm sure that was hard.
It definitely was. Like, I always tell people because I also have an ebook out, and I always try to tell people, especially young moms, because I was a young mom. I had my son at 19, to use whatever assistance that is available. Do not feel ashamed, because it is
Mhm.
there to assist you to move forward in life, to take that next step to move forward. So my rent went by my income. I was on state insurance at the time, but I did what I had to do so I can move forward. You know what I mean?
Mhm. And
Yeah.
like you said, it should be no shame in that. I think a lot of people, it's a negative connotation behind government's assistance, but it's literally to help you get to the next point. So if you don't ever feel like you're abusing it, because we pay into the tax system, so you should be able to use that to motivate you to get to elsewhere. It, which
Exactly.
which is what you've done.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And so, I and as an LPN and you can work in many different areas. So I worked
Mhm.
at a pediatric office for 1 year. I knew that that wasn't for me. I knew right then and there peds wasn't my thing. And then I would never forget during my lunch break, I filled out a job application and I got an LPN job at a skilled nursing facility. Now, this
Mhm.
is going back to like 2008 and 2007, 2008, and they started me at that time like $28 an hour. And this
Ooh.
is where there was a shortage of nurses, right? So this
Mhm.
is like right before the economy crashed. And so what happened was, there was a surplus of jobs for nurses. Nurses were making a lot of money at the time. You would go into the job and be like, why should I work for this company, right?
Mhm. You're
So
interviewing them.
exactly, exactly. So when the economy crashed, you had all these people in corporate America, looking for a way to make money, and corporate America wasn't it at the time. So what did they do? They went for a 1 year accelerated program to become a nurse.
Mm.
So then you had a surplus of nurses kind of at that time. So I kind of like seen all the changes from, the early 2000s to where it is right now. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how it goes.
Okay. First and foremost, before I move on, what is your ebook called?
My ebook is called Steps Every Step to Nursing Success. It's on
Okay.
my website, everystepnurse.com.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yes,
ask you that before we
my steps
moved
to
on in the
nursing
episode.
success. Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So now, like, you've been a CNA, you have become an LPN, you're seeing all the things that are happening. And at what point did you decide to transition into becoming an RN?
Well, my skilled nursing facility was closing down. And I said, you know what? This was the perfect time for me to get on unemployment because they had to give everybody at the skilled nursing facility unemployment. It was a perfect time for me to go back to school full time, and that's exactly what I did. And I was able to work per diem still. I just had to kind of log in my hours and be able to collect unemployment. Yeah, so
Okay.
that was it kind of like worked
Work.
out perfect. Yeah, it worked out perfectly for me. My first semester of RN school, I had to repeat a class because I just
Hmm.
wasn't ready. And then I would see people in nursing school pregnant, and I'll be like, Lord, how did they do it? Like how
Yes.
do they like how do you become pregnant in nursing school? So next thing here I am going natural with everything.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, and then next thing you know, I'm pregnant in nursing school. So
It's in the air.
it's literally
Pregnancy is in
in
the
the
air.
air. Yeah. So I graduated with my daughter like I was 6 months pregnant. I was so
Hmm.
determined. I would commute back and forth from Connecticut to New York, taking the train, taking the subway to clinicals. But like I said, I did it. I did it. I was determined. Nothing was going to stop me.
Okay. You know what?
Yes.
I was not I didn't have any children while I was in nursing school,
Mm-hmm.
but I noticed that the moms in nursing school had a particular type of motivation.
Yeah, they did because they knew, like, as a mom, I know that this was going to change our lives. This was going to make everything better, was becoming a nurse and be able to provide for them in a different capacity.
Mhm.
Since becoming a registered nurse, I was able to buy a house within 2 years. You know what I mean? So I was changing the trajectory of their lives by me going back to school because I didn't grow up in a house. I grew up in an apartment complex. Oh, I grew up in the worst side of Connecticut. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it was important for me for them to have a different environment.
Yes. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
And
Look, I'm
and
telling
I
you.
don't really talk about like this too much, but
Mhm.
when I was in back in 2010, when I was at LPN, I had a brother who passed away from gun violence.
Mhm.
So, I had a young son and it was important for me to, change his environment. That was my main thing. I didn't want him to grow up the same way that we kind of grew up.
Okay. I did, and my condolences to you. I had something similar happen. My sister-in-law, she also passed away from gun violence as
So
well, right
sorry.
before, yes, right before she was about to graduate high school.
Oh,
So I completely understand. And I was in nursing school at the time.
yeah.
So at
Yeah.
what point did that happen for you? Because I saw in your journey that at some point during your nursing career that happened.
So at the time, it was 2010, I was working as an LPN at a skilled nursing facility. So
Mhm,
my brother was 17 and I was 26 at the time. And my son, he was 6 years old. So I'll never forget, we saw him that Saturday. He had my son on a scooter, just kind of riding up and down the hill, riding up and down the hill. And
mhm,
I'll never forget, I was in bed sleeping. It's so traumatizing. And people kept on like, I lived in an apartment building, so you have random people like ringing your buzzard and stuff like that. So I didn't answer the buzzard. I kept on getting all these missed phone calls, and I would just ignore them. And I finally answered, and my sister told me obviously the devastating news, and I just
mhm.
screamed. And at the time, he was living in a different town of where it happened. So I had to, drive up there in the middle of the night and to like witness the aftermath of seeing the ambulance and the
Mhm.
news people. It was just traumatizing. And to then tell my son the next day, that his uncle,
Yeah.
who he was very close to, passed away. And I don't think I had to tell him how he passed and stuff like that. And it was hard for him to take because that was his first real experience with death.
Mhm.
So, it was, it still obviously, impacts our family to this day. You're never the same again. You're
Oh,
you're
no.
never the same.
Not at all.
Um, but and you never, it's hard to get over, and you just really have to move forward. I remember not being right for like 3 years after that.
I look, I'm telling you, I don't know what happened that day,
Mm-hmm.
but I just know, like, life did change for me.
Yes.
Um, and I can't pinpoint, like, how I was beforehand.
Yeah. And the thing is, you look at the world differently.
Mhm,
It's like everything was like kind of all innocent, and it kind of like just with the snap of the fingers, it just changes. Now, I
mhm,
recently lost my father back in December, but it's like you're expected to bury your parents. You get what I'm saying? Like
mhm,
it's expected. That's the way of, the life order of how you would hope and want it to go. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Versus a sibling at such at a young age. So yeah, no, I get it. I'm lived it, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Oh, no, not at all. Cause you
Mm-hmm.
don't know that you're gonna experience it until you do, but girl,
I know. I know.
my goodness, my goodness. I really hurt for the children who didn't get to see what their future would look like.
Exactly. And so that's why I try to, change. I try to do experience many different things because I know that my brother didn't have the ability,
Mhm.
he didn't have the chance to experience it. So yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we're gonna get off the heavy topics.
Yes. Yes, yes,
But
yes.
yeah, so now you're are in school
Mm-hmm.
and you've had your baby. At
Yes.
this point, you've graduated, but while you
Yes.
were in nursing school, what challenges did you face aside from being pregnant?
Oof, girl, just the everyday life of nursing school, keeping my grade average above 78%, which was hard.
78?
Especially, it was 78, which was, if you have one bad test grade. So, for
Mhm,
instance, I'll never forget. So, I told you I had to repeat the first semester because I just wasn't ready.
mhm,
So, here I am, I'm pregnant during nursing school. It's the last semester before we graduate. So, we had three regular tests test and then the final. So the first test I'll never forget, I had like an 80%. The second test, I literally walked out of that test knowing that I failed. And when I walked out of that test, I started preparing for the next test because I was like, I didn't know anything on that test. Like I bombed it. I literally got like a 58, 60 something percent, and that brought my GPA all the way down. So I
Mhm.
was banking on, the next last two tests to kind of keep me above or get me back to 78 and to keep me above so I can graduate in literally, 5 weeks. So I just think it was the main thing of maintaining my GPA, my average of 78%, and, just really focusing on my learning style. I was already so, into school. I didn't learn my learning style until I was pretty much towards the end.
Mhm.
And yeah, just pretty much just staying on top of the assignments and maintaining my GPA and just trying to retain everything that you learn in such a short period of time. Taking all the knowledge that you learned from clinical skills because the clinicals were off the hook. Like I said, I went to school in New York, so my clinical, like my psych rotation was at Bellevue Hospital, the Bellevue Hospital. So can you imagine all of the, everything that I've seen at that time during clinical? It
Oh,
was
yeah.
amazing. Oh yeah.
Well,
So yeah.
I'm glad that you got that experience because look, I'm a baby nurse, but I'm not really a baby nurse. I've been a nurse
Mm-hmm.
for going on 5 years now. But COVID shut the world down.
Oh,
A lot of people
oh
didn't
my
get to
God,
experience their clinicals. Luckily, I
girl.
was because
Mm-hmm.
I had a nurse externship at a place that allowed me to still come do my clinicals and work.
Yes. So while during COVID, I'll never forget, I was working at a skilled nursing facility and I was the staff educator.
Mhm.
So when COVID hit, we were like in the beginning, we don't know what it is. We're looking at all these cheap flights.
Is it the flu?
Is it the flu? We're looking at these cheap flights, like, oh, I'm gonna go here. It's so cheap right now, yada yada this, and then that first week, second week of March hit, and you're like, holy crap.
Mhm.
So I had to do all of the education to all of the staff members, which was a building of 400 staff members that consisted of obviously healthcare employees, nursing, CNAs, LPNs, the administrative team, physical therapy, the kitchen staff, literally everybody in the facility because it was a large long-term care facility. And at the time in the beginning, we were like, we're not accepting anybody with COVID. Like we are not accepting if the hospital's trying to bring somebody in there, we're not accepting anybody with COVID.
Ooh.
Well, yeah, this was like literally the first weeks. We had to make sure they were tested negative, yada yada this. But then, obviously staff members started to get sick, and then
Mhm.
unfortunately patients started to get sick, so it was unstoppable. Anything that you did, we couldn't keep up. The state, the states that run the Department of Health, they wasn't coming in the buildings in the beginning. They maybe started to come in like maybe towards the end of March, beginning of April, but it took a lot of time to get policies in place. We would receive blasts from the fax machine from the state of Connecticut. We didn't have enough testing samples to see, to test to see if they had COVID.
Mhm.
At the time, you just kind of like, oh my goodness, from the symptoms, it looks like they have COVID. So it was a lot of learning at the time. Every day was something new. We didn't have enough supplies. Reusing the same mask.
Oh, yes. Put
You're,
your
I mean,
mask in a paper
oh,
bag
in a paper
and hold
brown
on to
bag.
it.
You had people who were selling knitted masks. You remember the cloth mask people were
Mhm.
wearing, they're trying to buy at the time?
Ridiculous.
I mean, I
We
would
were doing
literally
anything, man.
everything. I would literally walk in the side of my basement, strip my clothes off, throw them in the wash machine every single day. Like I couldn't even hug my daughter for months on end. And this is, she at the time this is her first year in kindergarten, right?
Mhm.
So this is like she's starting elementary school. She's supposed to be learning all of this stuff. She's not. She's not having any kid interactions. You start to see how it started to impact her mental health as a child.
Mm.
So not only that, you're, going to work every day, you're seeing death pretty much every single day. And then you're going home and you can't even hug your loved ones because you don't want to possibly give them COVID.
Oh my goodness. I don't
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing people that, went to New York on, like, travel assignments and stuff or went up north for travel assignments. Fortunately here, because 'cause I'm in Florida now, but
Mm-hmm.
fortunately here, we had supplies.
Yes.
So they were
Yeah.
just like they were making up units, they were doing whatever, just throwing money at the situation. And they were throwing money at supplies, but not money at the nurses.
Yes.
So critical nurse pay that I was seeing people in Georgia get, we were not getting that. We were
Yeah,
not getting
because
that.
this area, because it's so populated, was the epicenter.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'll never forget that Easter weekend. I would go to work, and then it would be a Saturday because also worked like a part-time job at another skilled nursing facility. So I would go to work Saturday taking care of a patient. I'm not joking with you.
Mhm.
Sunday, the patient was gone.
Gone.
And you're like, what happened? Like, they didn't display any symptoms at the time. It was so quick, so sudden. And because of the elderly population, it just hit them and took a toll on them. And then, their bodies couldn't fight it, obviously, just like other people from all different age groups, it was hard,
Yes,
we all know.
it was crazy because similar to your situation, I had the same thing happen to me. I would go home, come back, patient's gone. So as soon as I had the ability to leave bedside, I did as quick as possible.
Mm,
Um, and to me, my reason for going into nursing was I wanted to help people. And how I saw helping people because I came from long-term care was being at bedside. And so I went from being at bedside to being in the OR. I stayed in COVID for like until pretty much COVID slacked up, and then I made my escape plan.
got it. That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, and this is going into, like, during the time of COVID, I wasn't really enjoying nursing as much, right?
Mhm,
So that is why I created Every Step Nurse, because I'm like, I need another outlet to enjoy nursing. You know what I mean? I
mhm,
needed something else because I was trying to tell people to go back to school to further their education from the med carts at the
mhm.
nurses station, and I just felt like maybe I could reach, a larger audience. And so that's why I created that page for that reason and that reason only. And it just kind of blew up to something, something that I didn't even imagine. And I'm glad that I was able to do it. And at the time I was in the leadership role, working as a staff educator, but it was time for me to move forward. And I knew that, I during COVID, I enrolled into a BSN program. It was an online BSN program. But I knew that, it's time for me to become a nurse practitioner. So I wanted, some more bedside experience, but in
Mhm.
acute care setting because I've always worked in skilled nursing. So I was like, let me go back to bedside and go into the hospitals to gain my experience because I felt like if I wanted to be a well-rounded NP, I needed bedside experience. So that's exactly what I did and where I am right now.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Yes.
And you pretty much are answering all the questions that I have for you, but this
Oh.
particular question is going to go back into your nursing experience. So you
Hmm.
have applied for PA school and now you have failed one semester of nursing school. How did that impact your application for NP school?
So the first semester, so I failed. Wait, say that again. So I failed the first semester of RN school, you're saying?
Yes. Mhm.
So it really didn't because I mean, I just failed a class. So I just had to repeat that class. It didn't count as anything negative. But I was at the time, I was depressed, of course. I
Mhm.
saw my classmates kind of move forward and I had to repeat a semester just because I thought I was ready when I wasn't ready. But I'm glad that I obviously had that option to like, that kind of gave me the drive to like, girl, you better get it together. This is
Mhm.
something that you want to do. This is your career path. This is your goal path, and you're going to go and do it. And so the first program that I went to was an associate's degree program. And I had my associates for like 6 or 7 years before I decided to go back for my BSN, because you got to remember, I was pregnant at the time. I bought a
Mhm.
house at the time. I got married at the time. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of life changes that were happening during that time before I got my BSN.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so again, when I decided to go back into NP school, I my BSN GPA was like 3.8. So I know
Okay.
with your NP, you have to have a GPA average of 3.0 and above
Yes.
before, yes, yep. So yeah. So my BSN GPA, like when I got my bachelor's degree, it was like 3.8.
Yes, that's I was asking that because I recently applied for DNP school,
Oh,
and so thank you. I
congratulations.
start next week.
Oh, girl. I'm so happy for you. No, everybody's starting like next week, in the next 2 weeks, girl.
My goodness.
So
So
which one are you doing? FNP or
so I'm
acute?
going into I'm getting my DNP in leadership and organization.
Nice. Okay. Nice. I like that.
And so from there, once my baby is a little older, then I'll go and get either my FNP or they do have a new certificate for lifestyle. So it's holistic medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll either do FNP or go in and get my lifestyle certificate.
I love that. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Are welcome.
So now you have decided that you want to go into NP school. So what has that been looking like for you?
So I decided to go back to NP school, and it was a battle for me because I was debating if I wanted to do FNP or psych. Now, mind you, I come from a skilled nursing facility. I worked on the Alzheimer's and dementia floor for 4 years. On top of that, I received like an award from the Alzheimer's Associations back in like
Ooh.
2010, back in like years ago. So I was like, you know what? I was debating like maybe I should do F&P. And then I spoke to a mentor, and she was like, you have all this background in geriatrics. What about doing geri psych? And it kind of like lit a light
Mm,
bulb, like, you know what? That's the population I love. Like some people like kind of turn their nose up at geriatrics, but to be true, I that has always been like my favorite population, was
they are a
working in skilled
pretty group of
nursing.
people.
Yep, working in skilled nursing. I just always love that population. Like me working in the hospital, don't get me wrong, I work in oncology primarily, working as a med surg float nurse, and you see a lot of these patients, they're dealing with a lot of mental health issues with what
Mhm.
they're going through with their diagnosis, right? So it's like, they need a lot of assistance as well when it comes to their mental health, just having to deal with the new diagnosis of having, this cancer or whatever it may be. But
Mhm.
I decided to go that route. So yes, I started Psych NP school last year. Girl, I'm going into my second semester the end of this month,
Congratulations.
and I'm excited about it. But it's nursing school. It's no joke. Like my BSN was a breeze because it was online, but Psych NP school is completely different, as it should be, because now you are practicing on a different level. Now you are providing care where you are diagnosing the patients, you are prescribing medication. So I get it, you know what I mean? But girl, the stress is there.
Yes. So what are you doing to decompress?
Oh my God, I am doing a lot of writing. Not just, schoolwork writing, just writing, just journaling pretty much.
Mhm.
I try to kind of have like a place of quiet, just quiet mode. I don't necessarily like to say it's meditation because I don't zone out on music, but I just kind of really have to shut everything down to kind of get into a mental space where I feel balanced, because I feel like I know when I'm feeling like I'm not centered, right?
Mhm.
So I just really need to kind of like reorganize everything in my life and get myself centered to where I have that peace in my chest, because I'm kind of like weird. Like you kind of feel the stress on your chest, and it's a different type of stress. Like school stress is different, but when you know other
Yeah.
things are not aligned in your life,
Mhm.
you feel that pressure in your chest, and once that is relieved, I feel better. Whether it's going for a walk, just having a quiet space, or just kind of really just decompressing, that's what I have to do to kind of realign myself.
Okay, I'm glad that you have acknowledged those feelings and you're
Mm-hmm.
working on that because a lot of times in nursing school, NP school, even if you're a doctor, when that stress hits you, most people don't know how to navigate that and cope effectively.
Exactly. Exactly. And you see a lot of, obviously healthcare providers who, are struggling with coping, because we have dealt with
Mhm.
a lot with, COVID, and just dealing with the everyday stress as being, a nurse. And, people deal with nurse bullies, people deal with the
Yes.
stress from their patients and everything like that. Now, let's add on being a Black nurse. Okay, that's a whole nother level of stress, which is why,
Mhm.
why I created with my business partner the affirmation cards for Black and brown nurses, because we felt like it was needed. Because a lot of times I am the only Black nurse working on the unit, and it's like you look to the left, you look to the right, you're like, yo, where are my people at? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And let me tell you something, when I have a patient who is Black and they see you, they be like, all right, sister, like it brings so much joy to their face that they have someone who's caring for them that looks like them.
Mhm.
Yes.
Look, I am so glad that we have decided to go into nursing because one thing about it, we are kind of bullied by our teachers first in
True.
nursing school. In nursing school, they make us feel like we're not accepted or like, we suffer from the imposter syndrome. And once we get into nursing, like actually going out into the field, it's kind of hard for us to integrate ourselves into those spaces because we already feel like we don't belong. One of my preceptors, she's become a good friend of mine, and she was like, Keisha, you are a Debbie Downer of nursing. Like you're great at your job. You do a great job, but you're always in your head.
Mm.
Cuz when I was a baby nurse, I would, you go into it and you're like overanalyzing. And so she
Yes.
was like, Keisha, you got this. You are doing a great job. And the same thing when I started in the OR, my scrub tech was like, I looked at you and I instantly knew that you had this. But I would
Mm.
always be like, girl, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing something.
Yeah. That's so funny that you say that, because when you are in like a leadership role, you can easily, and I mean a leadership role, not like something like a manager on the floor, because that's completely different, but it's you can tell when someone is going to do good by looking at them and how they just organize themselves and how well they
Hmm.
receive information and stuff like that. And it still takes a while, especially as a Black nurse, right? If someone is telling me something, because what I don't like is to be say that I did something when I didn't do it. You know what I mean? We are
Right.
automatically have a defense mechanism up. And sometimes I realize I have to like check myself, you know what I mean? Or is it really just you just starting bull crap, and I don't want to curse on here. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
sometimes you have to like take a step back and reevaluate the situation, and we're like, okay, you know?
Sometimes they will, they will gaslight you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They will definitely make you feel like you have done something that you did not do. And
Mhm.
sometimes they'll have you feeling like, hold on, did I? And no,
Exactly.
and no, you didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. But
So I want to talk about this is a quote that's going around, and I love that this is what your business is called, the Per Diem Princess.
mhm.
So, what led to you creating that business?
Well, with my co-partner, Lena Bridges, she's also known as the Nomad Nurse.
Hmm.
She said it one time in a live, like, I'm a girl, I'm about to be a per diem princess. And at the time, I was already a PRN, you know, I was working PRN.
Mhm.
And I was like, girl, we need to do something with this because number one, travel nursing is not always going to be there. And as
Light
you can
bulb went off.
see, travel nursing is not there. So
Yeah.
as nurses, the ones who did go into travel nursing, we kind of got used to making a certain type of money, right?
Mhm.
Number one, the flexibility that you had over your life, the flexibility of being able to create your own kind of your own schedule or having it mapped out, being able to take vacations when you wanted to take vacations because you were not pretty much you created your own time. And working PRN, I've been PRN for over 2.5 years. I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and I could be honest with you, I can't see me going back to staff. Now,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously I am staff, but I just love the flexibility that I have over my life. I'm not missing holidays. I'm not missing weekends. I know some hospitals have different requirements and you have to meet them, right? But you know, I would miss important events because I worked on Saturday and Sunday for 12 hours. I would miss birthday parties. I couldn't be there for my daughter's first day of school because I had to work, or my son's first day of school, like stuff like that. I think
Mhm.
one thing COVID made us realize is what's really important, and it's not being tied down to a job that wouldn't do it for you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it kind of just made me reevaluate everything in life, and put things into perspective that this is what really matters. And I love the flexibility over my life, even though I cry every month. I got to pay that private healthcare insurance, but you
Oh
know what?
my goodness.
But to me, it's worth it.
Look, I don't even know if the hospitals really offer that different of a plan, if I'm being 100% honest, because I definitely pay my hospital about $500 a month,
Yeah,
and it's not the best,
it's not the
insurance
best.
plan.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm figuring like if I could do like an extra shift a month or two, and I'm making my own schedule, you really don't, it really works itself out because at least
Mhm.
I can have control over my own schedule. If I want to go on vacations, I plan it around the time that, I'm off. If I work Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I can go on vacation Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then go back to work on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday if I want. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to make it work out um, to your lifestyle. And I also know that a lot of people have, multiple jobs where they can pick up to make sure, they're able
There's
to
some
financially
stability.
survive.
Mhm.
Yes.
So, what would you say some struggles that you had with starting your business?
Oh my God, it was the basics. So even with the PRN per diem princess, I'm in Connecticut, but it's based in Texas because that's where my business partner is. So just
Mhm.
learning all of that, contacting the capital of Texas, which is Austin, sending paperwork in, the filing the taxes, every little detail, even from like, when you're doing an ebook, because we also have an ebook out on how to become PRN, and we have information in there on, just giving you information on, insurances and stuff like that. Every
Mhm.
little detail from the design, you know what I mean? Stuff that you possibly missed, every little aspect, making sure the information that you are putting in the ebooks will give something to somebody. They can take something from that and apply it to their life. That is what's important. Even with my own personal ebook, the same thing. It goes into my personal story to aspire. It's an inspirational ebook to inspire future nurses and nurses who want to move forward. So I just want to make sure I'm giving out the proper information so they can take that and apply it to their life.
Okay, I love that. So, since we are nearing the end of this episode,
Yes, it's been such a great conversation.
yes, oh my goodness, it does not feel like we've been
I
speaking for this long.
know.
But what is a piece of advice that you would give to new nurses deciding that they want to come into the nursing field?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what the advice I would give to new nurses is to number one, stay positive. Even though when you feel like you do not understand something, it literally takes you 6 months to really learn a job. It takes
Mhm.
you 6 months where you can be like you can stop asking questions. Now let's be clear, in nursing, if you don't know something, you're always going to ask questions because it's so
Yeah.
innovative. You're learning every single day, but for you to really know the day-to-day basics of your job, it literally takes 6 months. If you have, nursing, you can easily move up. So you're in the best field. If you do not like something, if something does not feel right, you can switch your specialty at any time. I don't want new nurses to ever feel like they are stuck. We are living in some different times where you can switch your specialty at any time. You can switch your career path at any time. There are so many different opportunities, especially for LPNs. I have recommended an LPN who was on a cart to do a case management job, and she's been at that management job for like the last 3 to 4 years because she
Mm.
couldn't do bedside anymore. We were at the skilled nursing facility, and I was like, listen, this case manager who was an RN at the time is leaving. Listen, you can move up in this. You should do this. I think you would be great at it. And I suggested her, and she's been there ever since. With new nurses, if this is something that if you want to switch it up, just do it. Stay positive, learn how to take constructive criticism. Okay, it's going to take some time to decipher if they're picking on you or if it's really constructive criticism,
Mhm.
but use it as a learning tool as well. Don't be offense, take it as an offense all the time. So,
Yes. And I am so glad that you have created a space for new nurses, CNAs, anybody who wants to go into these spaces. I'm glad that you created a space for them to feel like they're seen.
yes.
And also, it's seeming like as a nurse, like you're very, very intentional about letting people know that you can further your career.
Yeah, because I think what the mentality is, and I think it's with many jobs, you stay there till you get your pension for many
Mhm.
years and all this other stuff. And I did myself a disservice by staying loyal for so many times. I was with a company that at the time, as a RN, I was doing staff education. I was only making 70 grand a year. Now, this is, of course, before COVID.
Mhm.
It was two of us at the time, and they reduced the job down to one nurse, which was me. And I was doing extra work. I was taking care of two sides of the building. And I'm like, wait a minute now.
Yeah.
So, exactly. So, I got another job offer. When you work in a long term care facility, everybody kind of knows everybody. So, I'll never forget the director of nurses. Another one from another facility, she tried to grab me and they offered me $20,000 more. And to be quite honest, I was flattered and I was going to take the job, but I didn't want to make a lateral move. And a
Mhm.
lateral move for me was going from one long term care facility to another doing the same job because I already had it in my head that I wanted to get into the hospital because I want to go back to NP school, and me making a lateral move is just not going to be beneficial for me at this time. So I kind of did a counter offer in my job. They didn't want me to leave, so they matched my pay to 90,000. And so it was just like, you know what? Sometimes you got to call their bluff and leave. If they want you, they'll match you, or you move on to another job where they're going to pay you more.
And I love that you said that because a lot of times we don't see the value that we have in ourselves. They know how valuable we are, but we don't see it. So they will use you until
Mm-hmm.
you negotiate for yourself and stand up for yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. But now we know, and I'm going to tell you something. With the new, generation, the Gen Zs, they don't play. They have taught us a
Mm-mm.
lot. They have taught me a lot. And even just being on social media and creating this platform, I have learned so much with just the non-traditional route of going, with expanding your nursing license because you can do so much with it. You can open up so many different businesses. You can open up, a practice.
Mhm.
I'm just so inspired by all of these nurses who are doing great things, and they inspired me to do the same thing now, because they don't teach you that in school. They don't
Oh,
teach
no.
you what you can how you can leverage your nursing degree. And so that is the beauty of social media. I always call social media the gift and the curse because it shows you so many different things of what you can do to elevate yourself as a nurse.
Yes, Gen Z, they know their worth.
They definitely do. They do not play.
They know their worth, and they're gonna charge 2 times that.
Yes.
So, I really am inspired by them, and also to anybody that I'm precepting, I don't care where they are in that moment. I'm like, "Look, if you wanna do something better, you can get there."
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, where can we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Every Step Nurse. You can find me on TikTok at Every Step Nurse. You can check out my website, everystepnurse.com. I have my ebook, which I'm going to put on sale before school starts because I feel that it
Okay.
can be definitely beneficial for future nursing students or nurses who want to further their education. My steps to nursing success. You can click on my website, and find it. I also have some mentoring options, which I feel like I need to, reduce the price a little bit to help out nursing students, especially for nursing students, because that's my passion. I always loved nursing students. They would come into my job. I'll set up their clinicals, and I just love everything about it. I just love the joy of people starting out in their nursing career journey, and I'm
Mhm.
glad that this was my path. Again, as a rough 17 teenager, I necessarily know that I wasn't going to get into nursing until I went into that CNA program, and it kind of opened my eyes. And I'm glad that that was my journey. Um, and you know what? I always kind of say, like, even though, like, at that age, I didn't know that was my journey, but as a kid, there was always little things that kind of like maybe this was my path
Mhm.
because I would always kind of help out my grandfather who was wheelchair bound. I was a nurse for Halloween. So it's kind of like it was always in me, even though at the time, because, when you're a teenager, you're going through things. You don't really see it, but it was always in me, to be quite honest. So here we are.
Yeah. I had a preceptor, no, I had a clinical instructor who said, "Nursing chooses you, you don't choose it."
That's it. That's it. It sounds
And
very cliche. It was like
it
in me. It was
does.
in me, and I didn't even know it was in
It
me
was in me,
because
not on me.
exactly that. Yes.
Well, if you all have made it to the end of this episode, thank you so much for listening. Nurse Sherri, the Every Step Nurse, she has given us so many nuggets that we can use throughout our career, and we really appreciate her for coming to this podcast. If you all have any questions that you would like to be on the next episode, you can always put them on our Instagram, which is the Evolved Nurse. And you can also email them to the evolvednurse@gmail.com. Also, for the new nursing students who want to make some money while they're in nursing school, your best opportunity is to find a nurse externship. And I have a free ebook for that. Go to the link in our Instagram bio and you can find it there. With that being said, I hope you all have a great semester because you're entering your school semester,
Yes.
and listen to the next episode.